Here on BBC Two, Fiona Bruce reports on Britain's road wars.
A war of attrition is now being waged on the government's £16 billion road building programme.
I think we're going to stop this road. I think that the government is going to see that the opposition is so enormous.
As the ranks of Middle England rise up to join forces with New Age protesters, Public Eye reports on the now sophisticated battle being fought in Britain's road wars.
Rise up, Middle England, oh, Middle England we, and send that common market freight by rail or cross the sea.
The unofficial poet laureate of protesters in Bath issues a rallying cry against construction of a new road. Here and all over the country, unusual alliances have been forged in a common cause. It's been called the well-heeled uniting with the well-intentioned. The burghers of Middle England rising up with environmental activists and New Age travellers to protest against the government's road-building plans.
Support BUM! Bath under motorways.
A theatre company gets a laugh at the expense of the roads lobby.
If we had motorways, travellers could travel further, that's what we say.
But despite the eccentricity of the protest, there's a real strength of feeling here. Many of the local people are passionately opposed to the new road. It'll run across the bottom of Solsbury Hill, a stretch of unspoilt countryside declared an area of outstanding natural beauty.
I live right here, just 2 doors down from here, and my children grew up here, they go to school here. I love this hill, I walk on the hill practically every day, and I can't bear to see the countryside in such a terrible disarray.
I love it here. The meadows are precious to the people in Batheaston, well, to me as well, but to the people in Batheaston, Batheaston. A 4-lane section of a motorway on stilts going across the meadows, it's outrageous.
I suppose it often starts off with concern for your own area, for your backyard, if you like. And some friends and I decided that we weren't actually willing to let the road go ahead without a fight. We were going to put up a symbolic protest, but now we really are intending to stop this road.
When you look at the countryside, which will be carved up by the planned new road, it's easy to see why feelings are running high here. The fields and water meadows around Bath will be permanently scarred, with a gash of tarmac running across them. And what's happening in Bath isn't a one-off. A whole pattern of road protests is now beginning to emerge. Here in East London, direct action against the M11 link road has been going on since last September, but it's much more aggressive than the more recent campaign in Bath. The road building here is further advanced, so the demonstrators have had time to get themselves better organised. The M11 Action Group prepares for battle. At the campsite, they've been tipped off that work is about to begin nearby, cutting down trees that are standing in the path of the new road.
If you're going up those trees, be careful because they sway a lot when you get higher up in the crown.
Well, we could do with more people going up there.
The protesters keep an eye out for security guards from the construction site and for the police.
You're on private property, could you please leave?
Well, I can remove myself, but
right, will you please do? Will you please leave? You're on private property.
But the protesters refuse to budge. The opposition quickly loses patience. The negotiations are over and the gloves are off.
You are assaulting. Let go. You let go, mate. Just let go. Let go.
What is your basis for holding me?
Yo, we don't want no harm, man. Take your hands off him! No violence! No violence! This is a public highway! No violence! Clear off! Get your hands off of your bullet! Hey, hey! Stop this violence!
Sometimes the protesters succeed in holding up work for a whole day, but not this morning. By 8:30 a.m, the trees the protesters fought to save are cut down.
Kill a tree. Don't you think that's a little bit pathetic?
But the protesters here believe they've won a victory of sorts, with a tactic now being used by their fellow campaigners in Bath. So far, they claim they've managed to delay the road for 5 months. The government concedes it's cost them £1.5 million. Many of the protesters believe, although it's too late to stop the road, such clashes send a clear signal to the government.
They've already been forced into a several-month delay on this stretch of the road because of all sorts of other delays. The longer we can hold them up, the more they have to backslide, the more the knock-on effects on other contracts, the more it sends this message time and time again getting through to central government that it is really going to cost them to carry on building this road because it is that unpopular.
It's not just trees the protesters are fighting to save, but houses too. There are just a few residents left here now who've chosen to defy the bulldozers. Dolly was born in her house and has lived there all of her 93 years. The campaigners have her full support.
Well, of course they must protest, dear. If you feel that a thing is wrong, what else can you do? It's a question of in this road. You haven't seen them at their best, but they're nice, comfortable little houses. They were built in about before 1890.
The cavalry coming to Dolly's rescue is a new breed of campaigner. So far, 9 people have needed hospital treatment. But what may appear to be just a loose ad hoc alliance of like-minded people is in fact an organised and structured crusade. Even these houses are an integral part of the M11 group strategy. They're due to be demolished to make way for the road, but the protesters are well prepared for when the big day comes. What happens in this house?
Oh, this is doing 2 things. This is working as a bicycle workshop. You've got Henry here. He's mass-producing bicycles from bits and pieces we find lying around.
So how important are they to the campaign?
They're a central part of the communications. Of our ability to respond rapidly is, geared around people being able to jump on a bicycle and get to wherever they're needed at a moment's notice.
The campaigners have adapted the houses to make it harder for the demolition workers or bailiffs to get in.
We've knocked through holes between all this row of houses so that we can get between one and the next and make it difficult for the bailiffs to get between one and the next when the big day comes. This is a sort of drawbridge-like gadget, which is the sort of defence we're going to be using to make life difficult for the bailiffs to get around. The final defence is people going to be on the roof itself. Here are large oil drums. They've been filled with concrete with armholes so that you can stick your arm deep inside the concrete. They can't then unlock you, which makes it impossible.
They can't drag you away?
Exactly.
And back at M11 HQ, an array of technical backup, computers, fax machines and photocopiers, means the campaigners can achieve a fairly sophisticated level of forward planning. And their ability to stage a publicity stunt and grab the headlines is obvious.
Hello, M11.
The office and its equipment has been paid for by donations, which have grown as the level of support for the campaign has increased.
The office is functioning, as the nerve centre of the campaign. This is where phone messages coming in from people who are contacting the campaign, wanting to lend their support. We're keeping an ever-growing database of those people, sending out the mail-outs, taking in messages of what's going on a day-to-day basis, where the actions are happening, making sure that the legal support is in place for when people are arrested and so on.
The tactics of the M11 campaigners are fed back into an umbrella organisation called Alarm UK. The M11 group is just one of about 250 that link into it. Alarm UK was set up in the 80s to coordinate road protests around the country. Only now are its effects really beginning to be felt. Headed by John Stewart, it helps its members in all aspects of successful campaigning.
We give people advice on everything from how to write a press release at the very simplest level to how to conduct a public meeting, to what is an environmental impact assessment study. We are also able to put groups in touch with experts on various subjects. But additionally, we will go out to groups who ask us to assist them in their campaigning and, crucially, I think, to put them in touch with one another.
Solsbury Hill, a designated area of outstanding natural beauty just outside Bath. Former site of an Iron Age fort, it's now become the focus of a more contemporary battle, one of the most important in Alarm UK's anti-roads campaign. Work on a new road started here 3 months ago. Running 2.5 miles from Bathford to Swanswick, it's for a bypass which will ease congestion through the village of Batheaston. And all along the A36 from Southampton to Bristol, similar bypasses are being planned or have already been built. Alarm UK believes they're part of a road-building plan by stealth, which will transform the A36 into a high-speed dual carriageway. So Alarm UK have invited campaign groups from all along the A36 to come to a meeting in Bath. The idea is that with the groups united into one big organisation, their campaigning will work to greater effect.
Welcome to this meeting, the attendance at which is a measure of how much concern this issue arouses in the...
There was a public inquiry in 1990 which stretched over 6 months, but local residents believed they were denied a fair hearing. They weren't allowed to discuss the development of the A36 route, only their local bypass.
This road is said to be a bypass, and the government did not allow us to discuss the strategic route aspect of the project. We think this is wrong. The public inquiry, we're often told, was democratic and fair, but the inquiry was not fair. Reopen the public inquiry this week and let's look at all the possibilities and save our countryside before it's too late.
Ever since the great planning battles of the 70s, there have been rows about the fairness of public inquiries. But what has changed in Bath is the injection of middle-class support into the anti-roads lobby. It's a shift that could be politically significant for the government. Many traditionally Tory voters appear to have become disillusioned with the democratic process and instead are taking part in direct action. Some of the middle-class converts have chosen to put a tent in this squatter's campsite in the path of the new road.
Come on, you nice people!
It used to be the front garden of one of the campaigners, until the bulldozers moved in. It's from here that the direct action is coordinated, though on a fairly ad hoc basis. The Bath campaign has attracted support from all classes and age groups, but it's the new age travellers who become the catalyst for action by the usually more reticent middle classes.
If it hadn't been for their involvement in this campaign and how I had got to know the wonderful people up the hill and their total commitment to the land, this camp would not have happened, and we would not be at this point now, because we have seen their bravery and their total and utter love of the countryside, and that has inspired me personally to actually try and do something about it.
This is a local issue, but this is also a global issue. This is going right through the country.
And are you welcomed wherever you go to protest?
The land welcomes me. That's enough for me.
Personally, I feel that it's really important, because just as an American Indian statement that says, tread lightly on the land and leave it as you found it. I mean, basically, we're not leaving very much for the ones that are going to come after us.
Hi, Finn, how are you?
Not so bad. What's that?
Just some vegetables.
The Honourable Victoria Legg, wealthy local landowner, is a comrade in arms to the New Age protesters. She's forged an alliance with Flynn, one of the travellers in the camp, to fight the building of the bypass. She's a regular visitor to the campsite and has pitched her own tent nearby.
We've got to unite. The only way we can do it is respect each other. We've got to get on. So they split us with telling us we're all stereotypes, we're all different people. We're all one people. We've got to come together.
And rule. And it shouldn't be like that at all.
So you are a woman of direct action, are you now, Victoria?
I fear I might be, yes.
What sort of direct action?
Well, coming out here, going on protest marches, sleeping. I've pitched my tent in a camp just across the field where I'm staying, and for the weekend. And really anything I can do to get the voice across that we need to control this mania for road building.
Victoria Legg doesn't take kindly to the suggestion that her zeal for the cause is just a way of indulging in a bit of NIMBYism.
Well, I really feel very strongly about the countryside, and I think that when areas are listed, areas of outstanding natural beauty, they should be respected as such. But the government at the moment seems to list them on the one hand and throw tarmac at them with the other. And so I'm very angry about that, and that's why I'm here.
Even one of Victoria Legg's relatives is lending her support to the campaign, albeit from a safe distance.
Somebody's got to stop it. And you know, at the moment, they're so busy in Parliament, it's very difficult to get anything done by the Prime Minister and the Parliament. And you see, we must not spoil our country. I've always thought Bath was so romantic, so exciting. I've written heaps of books for the background of it. And of course, it is the most beautiful countryside.
But the countryside doesn't look very beautiful in Batheaston because of the thousands of cars that pass through it daily. The new bypass is being built so that traffic will go around the village instead of through it. Most of the residents were very grateful for the outcome of the public inquiry and can't wait for the new road.
We want the bypass. We've been wanting this bypass for years. And these people who come up from Twyford to say we don't want it, they just don't know what they're talking about.
Very much for it. Having seen an accident, which is what started our campaign in the first place, where an old lady got crushed to death on the road just up here, I'd never seen anything quite so shocking. So I wrote a letter to the paper. It was a long letter saying how long is this going to go on for.
I think the evidence is self-explanatory as to why we need a bypass. We've got 38,000 cars a day passing through our village, which is shaking it to pieces, and the pollution and everything that goes with it, and also including the safety factor.
Behind this local row lies a much bigger debate about roads and transport policy in Britain.
In this country, as in virtually every other one in Western Europe, you see something like 90% of passenger and goods traffic travelling by road. We've got to face up to the fact that as our economy grows, and we all want to see the economy grow, because that will create the resources that enable us to have better education, better social services, and whatever, we are going to see inevitably a greater demand for transport, most of which is going to have to be catered for on the road system.
We're not saying never, ever should a new road be built, because that clearly is not in touch with reality. But we are saying, and we've done a document, Transport 21, which outlines this, that we are calling for a considerable shift of resources from road building to investment in other forms of transport. We believe that makes sense socially, it makes sense environmentally, and ultimately it makes sense economically.
It's this broader policy that has the backing of one of the more aristocratic supporters of the Bath campaign, the Marchioness of Worcester. She, perhaps more than any other, symbolises how the anti-roads lobby has penetrated to the very heart of the establishment, and she intends to exploit her privileged position to the full to get her message across.
It's all right. How are you?
She intends to lobby the government over what she sees as their policy of roads at any cost.
I've been working financially, bringing some food, bringing support, trying to get celebrities involved, trying to get environmentalists to meet with members of government. I hope John McGregor is coming to dinner with me to meet with people who are concerned and can give an alternative to his road policies.
And when it comes to standing up to the bulldozers, the Marchioness pitches in too.
Do you never come and walk in the countryside?
She tries gentle persuasion to bring the security guards round to her point of view, but it falls on deaf ears. Perhaps in deference to her blue blood, the Marchioness is spared the rough handling meted out to the other protesters.
Will I do as you're told, please?
Such demonstrations may generate much-needed publicity and cause costly inconvenience, but in reality, this is the protest of last resort. As at the M11, the campaigners are unlikely to stop the new road being built. But now the Anti-Roads Coalition believes it has a new and much more powerful weapon in its armoury. John Stewart meets up with his colleagues to discuss the tactics of the many campaigns bubbling up all over the country. Despite recent cuts in the government road programme, they believe there are more battles to be won. With the lessons learned from Bath, they've devised a new strategy.
And I think there's some pretty clear battlegrounds coming up in the next couple of years. We've got the M25, we've got the orbital around Birmingham, the first major toll road, we've got the road around Manchester, which takes out 400 homes, we've got Newbury down here.
They advise their groups to start protesting before direct action becomes necessary.
I think the big lesson is that until the 1990s, objectors put their faith in public inquiries. But the fact is, local people have very little chance of winning a public inquiry. This is what happened at Bath, where there's now people need to take direct action. What we're saying to our groups is that the best way to win is to start campaigning early. Long before public inquiry, long before public consultation. As soon as you hear of road schemes coming down your way, start campaigning.
Nick Davis is secretary of the A27 Action Group, fighting to stop a new road being built near Lewes by the south coast. He's following Alarm UK's advice and hopes to stop the road before a public inquiry ever gets off the ground. Where is the road going to run here?
The hills there are officially an area of outstanding natural beauty. The Department of Transport want to build a flyover 35 foot high and 90 metres wide across the base of those hills, down along the valley, along the line of the existing road, a whole new dual carriageway, bringing more noise, more fumes, all the other side effects of the road into all of the villages along the valley, which is why one by one the villagers are coming to realise that they don't need it and they don't want it either.
The group was set up last year and its membership has grown to 600. It's fighting a highly political campaign, lobbying the great and the good.
You see, one of the difficulties we've got is how does a group like this actually get through to the roads minister who's sitting up there protected by layers of bureaucracy. So if you can get a small group of us in to see him, it's immeasurable advantage.
Well, his reply to my letter...
Lords Ree and Skidelsky are two of the group's most influential patrons and lobbyists.
Then I'm privileged, because I've got a seat in the House of Lords, to have access to the minister. And I've written Robert Key a letter and suggested that we meet, myself and hopefully Lord Skidelsky and one or two local people who have expert knowledge of the situation.
I think always you come to things because of a personal involvement of some kind or another. There are too many issues in the world for full-time attention to all of them, and what tends to happen is that something happens near you or concerning you, which then gets you thinking about wider things. That's always the way it happens, and that's not a bad thing.
Behind the scenes, huge resources are devoted to dismantling the government's case for the road. There are 8 groups responsible for different elements of the research. The paperwork involved is enormous. Since October, Julian Soren has been spending most of his spare time on it.
We were all novices to begin with in terms of the planning procedure. It requires time and burrowing away at particular pieces of information and not taking no for an answer from the planning authorities and demanding the public right to know.
You can see it, all the working groups in a way form under 2 headings. There's input, output. Input means research, technical research, damage research, political intelligence research, we do that too. That all comes into the middle and then goes out through output, either through the press group into newspaper stories or through the lobby group. You take that information and you pitch it to local councillors and say, look how the Department of Transport have got it wrong. Or look at the kind of damage this thing's going to do. And so you're using your research to a political end. You're undermining the position of the road lobby by using that information.
The A27 group has succeeded so far in persuading the local district council to support their campaign and oppose the new road.
Now the A27 Action Group has been able to do some work and has put forward arguments against the road in principle, it's much easier for us to say we've suspended support for the road and can no longer go along with the Department of Transport in that form.
So how useful has the Action Group been?
Well, the Action Group has been very useful. They're full of people who are one-track mind. They spend most of their time, as far as I can see, putting together a very good case against the Department of Transport's proposals, and that's very useful because Lewes District Council has got many other things to do.
The A27 Action Group still have a long way to go, but they're increasingly hopeful of success. In the last 3 years, a dozen roads have been stopped with a similar strategy. Back in Bath, the construction of the road carries on.
down there. There's a digger working at the moment. We might go and pay them a visit in a minute. And this is Becky.
The protesters take time out to plot their next move. It's too late for them to be following the tactics of the A27 group in Lewis. They believe they have no choice now but to stop the work where they can for as long as they can. In a clear reaction to costly protests like these, the government is putting a new bill through Parliament. Its aim is to restrict such demonstrations and may even stop them altogether. The proposed criminal justice bill will bring an end to what's been called the honourable tradition of civil disobedience. For the first time, demonstrations and direct action will become criminal offences, punishable by imprisonment. Even those merely suspected of having the intention to take part in direct action could end up behind bars.
I think the bill is going to be devastating for M11 protesters and Bath protesters, for example. It's going to cut away most of their powers and rights of civil disobedience. It's going to stop them from all of the activities they're pursuing at the moment, and it's going to completely emasculate their power of protest.
What sorts of things that they're doing now could they not be doing when the criminal justice bill comes in?
Virtually everything they're doing now would be illegal, would be a criminal offence under the criminal justice bill. Things like sitting on bulldozers, sitting on roofs of houses about to be demolished, even standing around putting off workers from doing their work would be criminalised by the bill.
But most of the protesters in Bath are determined to continue, even if the bill becomes law. They're adamant the need to stop the road must come first. How do you think the criminal justice bill will affect you? Do you think it will put you off?
No, it wouldn't put me off.
You'd be prepared to go to jail for protesting?
If that is what the country wishes, if that's where the country wishes me to go, then jail it will be.
It won't stop me personally, but I think it will stop other people. But I think that what the government will have to realise is that if they stop people in one way, then they'll act in another way. So, for example, random attacks on cars, maybe digging up strategic bits of roads, may happen.
Would I go to jail? I have 2 babies. It'd be a bit difficult to go to jail. No, I don't want to go to jail, but I will fight as hard as I can to stop there being laws that will put people into jail when they are peacefully demonstrating against things which are destroying their lives.
When enough people feel strongly like we do here about something that's so obviously wrong, nothing will stop people doing what they believe in.
Not even a prison sentence?
No, not even a prison sentence.
So you'd be prepared to go to jail, would you?
I would indeed, yeah.
Whether the newly radicalised middle classes will be true to their word remains to be seen. For its part, the government is still committed to the roads programme as fundamental to the nation's economic health. With the stakes now being raised in Britain's road wars, the question is whether the government will remain willing to pay the political price of that commitment.
Tracks takes you back.
This is a place